I'm going to get started. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you are here today. Welcome to our kickoff event moderated by Mychal Threets, joined by authors Chris Grabenstein and Hena Khan. This is a live event we're doing in conjunction with our summer reading program prize program that we offer here at Baker and Taylor. Whether you're joining us from home or from your local public library, we are so happy you are here with us. My name is Grace LaRochelle. I'm the Children's and Teens Specialist here in the East at Baker and Taylor, as well as being a former children's librarian. It's my pleasure today to welcome you all to our live author event. Our fantastic guest moderator, Mychal Threets, is a 2023 winner of the I Love My Librarian Award from ALA and a viral internet advocate for library joy. As you most likely already know, Mychal utilizes social media to share the stories of library kids and grown-ups. He got his first library card at the age of 5, and he has been hooked from then on. Mychal is joined today by New York Times bestselling authors Hena Khan and Chris Grabenstein. Chris Grabenstein is the multiple award-winning author and New York Times bestselling author of over 5 dozen fun books for kids and the wildly popular Mr. Lemoncello's Library series. Hena Khan has been publishing titles for children for over 2 decades and is author of the middle grade novels Amina's Voice, Amina's Song, and the Super You series, and is co-author of Unicorn Rescue Society series. Thank you all so much for being here today. And a big thank you to Penguin Random House for being our publishing partner and bringing this fun live author event to librarians all over the country today. And now I am going to turn it over to Mychal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to Baker and Taylor for having us all. I'm so excited to be talking with Hena and be talking with Chris. I love authors. I am a librarian. I'm a former librarian in practice, but now I am just library's #1 fan. A lot of people here may argue with me on that, but I'm so happy if this is the launch of your summer reading challenge. If you're about to start, I'm so happy that you have summer reading. Don't forget to encourage your grown-ups, your moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, uncles, aunts to join the summer reading challenge. Hopefully your library's summer reading challenge is for all ages so that you can all participate and challenge each other all summer long, pursuing library joy. That's what I love. I also love mental health, so I hope that all of your mental health is thriving. Even if it's not today, I hope that you have better days to come. I hope you know that tomorrow is ready for you. And I'm so happy to be here with Hena and with Chris, and I'm so happy to be here with you. Both of them meant a lot to me as a librarian visiting places. Chris's books are just so adventurous, so much fun, so much humor and goodness in them. The library kids have always loved them. As a children's librarian, I used to always bring a suitcase full of books to local schools. And one of the books was Amina's Voice, which is by Hena. And those library kids would always be like, oh, that kid looks like me, seeing that kid on the cover. So I'm so happy to be joined by these two for representation, for library love, and for library joy. And without further ado, I will start asking them questions so you don't have to only hear from me. So let's start the first question over to Hena, which is, can you please tell us about your Pick Your Path adventure books and what was your inspiration behind those?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for everyone for joining us. Thank you, Mychal, for moderating. And hi again, Chris. It's so fun to talk about books and summer reading. And this is the the start of the Super You series, book 1, which is a pick your path adventure, which means that you drive the story, you choose what will happen in the narrative and make, decisions that turn you to different pages and wind you through different stories. And specifically in the series, you get a superpower. In this case, the power of flight. In book 2, the power of invisibility. And the choices you make lead you on very different paths. One true path will lead you to becoming a superhero, or you could end up a supervillain, or somewhere in between. And the inspiration for the series really comes from the original Choose Your Own Adventure series. Back in the day, I grew up reading these. But what I always found a little bit strange about these was that there was no consequence to your decisions. You did get an interesting story. You got to drive the narrative, make choices, and turn to different pages. And I always loved going back and seeing what the other choice might lead to. But it seemed kind of arbitrary, even though it was a lot of fun. So what's really different about the Super You series is that the choices you make do have consequences, and they may lead you down the path to becoming more and more of a hero or more and more of a villain. And that was really what I thought would be special and unique and fun about this, which I co-authored with a dear friend of mine, Andrea Minotti, and it's illustrated by the very talented Yancy Labat, filled with cool graphic art throughout. So hopefully lots of fun for readers.
Definitely. No, I love that. I love that you focus it on Choose Your Own Adventure. I'm a huge fan of that series. I love that they have a chance to become, like you said, a hero or a villain, and the person who often loves the villain side. I'm one of those people who
Yeah.
who wants to know the backstory behind a lot of our world famous villains. So I love I love the brainchild of how you came about this incredible series and the consequences. And I also used to go back and make the decision to see where I would get to. So I love that you're giving library kids that next step, and also and something they can relate to, and being a hero or a villain, because we all love our version of superhero. We all want to be one of those superheroes.
Yeah, and have those powers, right? And
Exactly. Yeah.
um, reading can be a superpower too. So hopefully you can work
Absolutely.
on both.
Oh yes, a lot of reading superheroes in this room. I love that path with the path, because me traveling a lot, being in traffic, I'm like, you know what? My path right now, I would love to be able to teleport and just get to where I'm going if I had a superpower. So thank you so much for that. And Chris, would you please tell us a little bit about the Limoncello series, whichever your version of a little bit is to tell about that extraordinary series?
Well, first of all, I must admit I've made some very bad choices. I'm still not flying. I'm still crashing and burning. Well, actually, I've actually declared this the summer of Lemoncello, because we're bringing the series to a big finale on November 5th. Not that there's anything else going on that particular first Tuesday of November, but there'll be a final book in the series, Mr. Lemoncello's Fantabulous Finale. And if you've been following the series, you know that Mr. Lemoncello has started giving out titanium tickets, which will grant access to one final big game, and somebody is going to inherit his entire empire. He's gone full Willy Wonka and Ready Player One. He's going to give everything away, and he keeps telling us there can only be one big winner. So there's a lot of competitors. And so what I'm hoping people do over the summer is read every one of these books so they get caught up. Because it's kind of fun in the finale to reference stuff that happened in the first 6 books in the series. So that's kind of big news in Lemoncello land. It's the ultimate, the final showdown, the epic conclusion. And and when you do find out who is the one big winner, please don't tell anybody. Keep it a secret.
I love it. And of course, all of our viewers can get those other books from the local library, read those, maybe even part of their summer reading challenge of the books that they have to read. Now I have to ask, how do you feel about this being the final book? Is it bittersweet?
It
Like,
is
oh, this is
bittersweet.
it.
It is, because they've been great characters. They've been around now for 11 years. In a couple of weeks, it'll be the 11th birthday of the first Mr. Lemoncello book. And it's been very terrific for me because I've got to visit a lot of great libraries. And the secret is, kids always ask me, oh, you must have had some great libraries when you were a kid. And I kind of remember, excuse me, growing up in Buffalo, New York, we had like a nice mobile library, a bookmobile that would come around, and that was a lot of fun. But when I went to Tennessee, we did not have a library. I grew up in a little small town in Tennessee, and even in the libraries in school were scary places where people would, shh, be quiet, young man, you'll wake up the books, or get your sticky fingers off the books, young man. So it wasn't until my first kids' books, which were some ghost stories that I wrote, that I started going on school visits and meeting this new breed of librarians who have made learning and reading fun. And I said, well, where were all these librarians when I was growing up? So I wanted to make Mr. Lemoncello's library the ultimate in the fun library,
Yeah.
because I encourage kids that reading is fun. Going to the library can be fun, because especially in the summer, I think that's one of the reasons I love the choose your own adventure books or mysteries. I think in the summertime they're like a game that you get to play, and it's almost as much fun as going to the playground.
Wow. No, it's all that is so very true. And you've actually kind of led us into our next question, talking about you growing up in libraries. And also for those of us who are viewing, please don't forget to add questions in the chat for after a few more questions from me. I can come up with far more questions, but we would also love to be able to answer your questions. And to ask Hena first is, can you please tell us about your favorite kids or teen titles or author when you were growing up or even now? I mean, I'm sure you all have your own friends in the middle grade picture book world. So any favorites from when you were library kids, or even now that you're writers yourselves?
Yeah, I was a huge library kid, and the library was my happy place where I spent a lot of my summer. And well, year round I was going with my family, but the summer was, the time where we would go with big bags that we would fill up and take home and dump out and sort. And that was a lot of how I spent my free time. And some of my very favorites at that time were anything by Beverly Cleary. She's my literary hero. I loved Ramona Quimby and the Ralph and the Mouse and the Motorcycle, all of those. I loved everything by Judy Blume. And then as I got older, I started to move more towards fantasy. I really loved the Lord of the Rings series and everything by Tolkien. But this was my all-time favorite book, which I didn't actually have to go to the library for. This is my copy of Little Women, which you can see is really, really worn out. We had to tape the spine to keep it from falling apart. So this is a book that I read and reread. And like many kids, when I really love a book, I love to re-immerse myself in it. And I think that's one of the reasons I like Choose Your Own books so much too, because that invites you to really go back over and over again and get a different story. But I was more than happy to read the same story over and over. And it felt like hanging out with friends that you've made and maybe a neighborhood that you love or a setting you really want to be in. And as much as fun as it is to explore and discover new stories, I always put one or two books in my bag that I knew I was going to love. And it was a source of comfort and a guarantee that it was going to be an excellent read. So very much a reader then and very much a reader now. I don't think I give myself as much time as I had as a kid to read luxuriously and to fill up a whole bag. But some of my favorites from my contemporary authors are books like A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park, One Crazy Summer, which I think is a great summer read by Rita Garcia Williams. Williams Garcia, and The Night Diary and its new sequel, which is beautiful, A Meal in the After, I think by a fellow author, Vera Hiranandi. So lovely books. So many out there to enjoy.
So many indeed. You know, it's such a tough question asking that question. Like, what books did you love growing up? What books do you love now? But I have to before we get Chris's answer, I have to ask. I'm a big fan of Beverly Cleary, my hero as well. Beverly Cleary used to be a children's librarian when she first got started. And Henry Huggins was one of my very first friends. Which leads me to a question like I devoured that book as a kid, Henry and Ribsy. Like now that you're reading, whenever you do make time, do you prefer audiobooks, physical books? Because again, I read Henry Huggins. And I love that now, like if you read Henry Huggins' audiobook on Libby, Neil Patrick Harris is a narrator of Henry Huggins.
Really?
So it's like, it is, yes. So.
I'll have to go back and have a listen. I do prefer physical books. I think I'm just old-fashioned that way. But I've been hearing more and more about the amazing narration of books. So that definitely sounds very tempting. And I love the idea of I do love to go for walks, and I love the idea of getting to read while walking and not tripping and falling. So I think I need to give more audiobooks a try.
Hey, there's so many walking readers out there. I've met many library kids in the library who are just sitting there reading their books, getting ready to run into the stack. So, Chris, were you a walking reader? What were some of your favorite books as a
Well,
walking reader
I have
library
to
kid?
admit that I wasn't a library kid because I didn't have any libraries. And I'm so old that when we were in school, we did not read books in school. We read something called SRA, which was a big box of color-coded essays. And when you read the red ones and answered all the questions correctly, you got to read the blue ones, and you slowly throughout the year finally made it to silver and gold. And then, then you got to read a book like The Red Badge of Courage. So, written a couple of years after the Civil War, I believe. So we didn't get to read a lot. So I spent all my reading, my fun reading, my summer reading was a lot of comic books. For some reason, I gravitated towards the Archie comic books and the Richie Rich comic books, but most especially, and I still have them, there they all are, Mad magazine books. I loved everything. They used to call themselves the usual gang of idiots at Mad. And it was filled with satires and parodies, and they would make fun of commercials. They would make fun of movies and television shows. And I would save up all my money all year. And we'd go on vacation to St. Petersburg, Florida. There used to be a place called Web City. And I have all my quarters and my nickels and my dimes. And I would buy like 10 Mad books. They were like 25 cents or 50 cents. And I'd buy them all. And those were my most favorite books. But now I've become somewhat of a remedial reader. I've gone back and tried. I finally read Charlotte's Web. That's a good book. And all the Beverly Cleary books. I do a little tutoring. I would read The Mouse on the Motorcycle to the kids I was with. So I'm trying to catch up on a lot of Half Magic by Edward Eager. Would have been around when I was a kid if I wasn't so busy reading those red and blue coated essays. But now I always tell kids they're living in the golden age of books written specifically for them. And I was and still am what they call a reluctant reader. I like to think I'm a super critical reader. I just like to read books that get like a movie projector in my brain started. So I gravitate towards, let's see, Christopher Paul Curtis is one of my favorites. I love Bud Not Buddy and the Watsons Go to Birmingham, 1963. I love Gordon Corman, Stuart Gibbs, James Ponty, Jenny Holm, Wendy Mass. They're all books I know if I pick them up, that the movie projector will get going and I won't want to put those books down.
There's so many books. I love asking authors, writers, illustrators, library people, educators that question because there's never one answer. It's always whichever book they have first, and they keep on going. We have people who agree that they also love Charlotte's Web, such a great book. There's a person on social media named who goes by Oliver Speaks, who's teaching himself to read in his mid-30s. He has indicated that Charlotte's Web has been one of the favorite books that he's read thus far, which I get. I mean, I love spiders. I love pigs. And someone else wants to know, can we find the book Super You at the library? Oh, I'm sorry, Hannah. I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry.
So excited.
I hope that you can find it at your library, but if you can't, you can always request books by any author that you would like to read from your library, and they're pretty great about ordering them. So that is always a way to access books both at school and at your public library. And of course, the books are all available in stores everywhere you look.
Absolutely. I can totally confirm that as a library person that if you want something at your library, ask. That's the best way for library people. We're all about the community. We're all neighbors. We're all in the world together. If we know that you want a book, then say, hey, can you please order this book? And we'll get the form and we'll do all that we can to get 1 copy, 2 copies, 3 copies. So many of yours are so popular and so great, and that's why we end up having to order more, because there's whole lists where people are waiting to get the next set, just like I'm sure for the upcoming Lemoncello book. It's going to be a long list of people trying to get that golden library ticket to find out.
Titanium.
Find out what happens. But please keep on putting your questions in the chat, asking the Q&A. If you're just having fun with the conversation, that's totally fine too. But we're here to answer great questions. And my next question, while we wait for another question, is how did you all get started at writing? Did you always want to write? I mean, I know, Chris, you said you weren't a library kid. Were you a kid who wanted to write? And then same for you.
Yes, I was. Because I was no good at anything else. My father wanted me to be good at sports, to play football, basketball, baseball, something with a ball involved. And I was the worst athlete to ever go to any school anywhere in America, I guarantee it. We used to play kickball where they roll the ball right at your foot, and I could strike out swinging 3 times in a row. But by the time I think I got to 5th grade, I started doing these little comic books where I draw the pictures and make up the stories. And then my friends would laugh at them. And then sixth grade, I'd write skits for all my friends to act in the talent show. Then in seventh grade, I was very lucky. There was a teacher, I still remember her name, June P. Garrett, and she was the advisor of the junior high school newspaper. And she encouraged me to write these. By then, I'd read so many Mad magazines. I wanted to write all this funny stuff, and she encouraged me to do that. And she was my seventh grade English teacher. And I said, well, who says homework has to be dull and boring? Can't I try to entertain Mrs. Garrett? And she liked what I wrote so much that she scribbled in the margins of one of my papers, you will make your living as a writer someday. And I tell kids, when a teacher tells you something, you know it has to be true because they all take a vow not to lie to children. So from that point on, and also by that point, I was taking a little interest in girls and stuff. And I found out, oh, if we could be funny and make girls laugh, it's almost, not quite, almost as cool as being the star of the football team. And so I guess I've always come at writing more as an entertainer. I never think that's like people say, are you an author or a writer? And I always say, I think I'm a writer because I write to entertain people and hopefully tell them stories that they don't want to leave until the book is finished.
Oh, I love that.
Absolutely, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I love that your teacher was encouraging. I feel like for me too, as a kid, that made a huge difference for me. Like being told that, oh, you're a good writer, and hearing that over and over again, I think is super encouraging. I was a writer as a kid, just for fun. I kept my writing private most of the time, except for the moments when I did share and get that positive encouragement. I used to write a family newspaper and write about what was going on at home. So that had a very small readership. But then I also wrote for my school newspaper. I wasn't a humorist, but I wrote for the editorial section of my high school paper. So lots of opinions. And then I went on to do all sorts of different types of writing wherever I worked. I worked for a bunch of nonprofit organizations trying to make people healthier around the world. So I would be the person who would always end up doing the writing, whether it was a newsletter or a report. But I still didn't really consider myself a writer, even though it was something I'd done my whole life and even did for pleasure. It really wasn't until a friend of mine who I've been close with since second grade, and she's also the co-author of the Super You series. Andrea Minotti, was the one who reached out to me when she was working for Scholastic Book Clubs, and she asked me for help with a series called Spy University. And that prior to that, I had never written for kids as an adult. And I thought, all right, I'll try, see where this leads. And I realized how much I loved it and how much practice it took to learn how to write for kids. But I wrote for several series, and that really got me started and thinking about the other stories I wanted to tell and write. And it was amazing to be able to come back almost 20 years later and ask Andrea to co-author Super You with me, and to even go back to our elementary school and present together there, and stand in our old school library and take pictures and celebrate. So definitely, I think the experiences you have as a kid, the reading you do as a kid, the encouragement you get from others, all of those can really set you up to be both a great reader and a great writer.
I love that so much. That's so incredibly powerful. That like how much it meant to you. Either if you're writing for yourself, if you're writing to make your classmates laugh, to make your teachers laugh. Teachers are so incredibly special. My mom was a teacher. I always loved writing as a kid. My mom was always encouraging me to write more and more. And it sounds like that's what the people in your lives did for you. Even if you didn't know, like, oh, I want to become a writer. I'm sure both of you were same as other library kids, other kids. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a superhero. I want to be Captain Marvel. I want to be the Incredible Hulk, whoever it may be. So I love that you both have that, those influences in your life and those reasons for writing, and it's led you to here. So you get to go back to your schools and encourage so many other kids. And speaking of so many other kids, can you talk about like the representation in your books about like representing different kids, people from different backgrounds? And how much that means to you, and perhaps how much it's meant to various kids who you've met who have read your books.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I try. I'm a white guy, but I try to do a lot of diverse casting in my books. I think it's something I sort of picked up when I did commercials. We always try to do diverse casting in all of our commercials. And now I'm really fortunate my friends at Random House have sensitivity readers who will look over whatever I've written, make sure I'm getting things right. And there is in the third Lemoncello book, there's a girl who's wearing a hijab and that sort of thing. And I've gotten some really nice emails from kids who say it was great to finally see a good character from my culture in your book. So that was really neat to see.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think, for me, it was a big reason why I moved from, writing about space and spies to writing about kids who look like me. Because I do think it's important for all kids to have that chance to see themselves in books and to be the hero in a book and to have their peers see them as the hero in books. I think both are equally important. So I love writing stories for every type of reader and hopefully try to reach a wide variety of kids. What I love about the Pick Your Path books is that you are the main character, so you can be anybody. And I love the way that's so freeing. And when Andrea and I were writing the books, we were very conscious to leave out as much personal information as we could. So we kept your background and your family really vague, so the reader can really imagine themselves being this kid. Of course, you have people in your life who you meet and maybe friends and things like that. But we, for example, don't say where you live or what your family looks like and so on. Because I do think, every kid wants to imagine themselves as the hero, right? Or however that looks, however that hero presents in a story, as the protagonist and to feel like your story matters and you matter as a reader, as a character, as a person, of course.
That's something
Exactly.
I try to do as well, just because I think kids enjoy putting themselves in the place of the main character. I'm very sparse on descriptions of my main characters. I very seldom will describe what they look like at all because I want kids to say, that's me.
Yeah.
And it's actually, if there weren't covers on books, you would not have as many cues as to the ethnicity of characters in my stories.
Exactly. That's so important. Just to be able like I think what we're really saying is like it's a story. Everybody's story deserves to be told, and that's what you're doing. You're allowing them to have their story be shared. I love that so much. And we also had a comment for Hena. Someone said, "Yes, my young Muslim friends are so excited to see themselves in your stories." And I think that's how people feel reading both of your books. They feel seen, they feel important, they feel valued. And we have another question. We're getting more questions. So exciting. In your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges kids face today when it comes to reading? And how can authors and librarians work together to address some of those challenges? And that's a complicated question. So maybe there's a little bit of
Yeah, yeah.
you can both answer that.
Interesting. I think probably the biggest problem is shorter attention spans. And I find even I have a shorter attention span. And I've been listening to some podcasts where talking about, do kids know how to stand in an elevator and be bored for 8 flights? Because they have a phone, right? They can look at a phone the whole time. So it's the ability to kind of let your imagination go and be devoid of earbuds, visual stimuli from the phone. It's hard. So I think it's a battle for attention spans, which is why I always try to write my books so that they're really fast. Like if I'm working on on one of my manuscripts and I get past 5 double-spaced pages, I say, this chapter's too long. I go back in there and trim it. Some of it comes from my experiences writing advertising, where the whole game was capturing people with short attention spans who had like 5 seconds to reach for a remote and zap your commercial if you didn't grab their attention in those first 5 seconds. So I think that's it. I would imagine finding the right book for kids. That I know that's easy to say, but it's hard to do because there's a right book for every kid. And whatever we can do to get kids to use their imaginations a little bit more. I tell kids who ask me how to become a writer, I say, well, the first thing you have to do is take out the earbuds and go for a 30-minute walk without any distractions at all. And you have to daydream and you have to let your mind wander for 30 whole minutes. And all right, I think I can do that. I think I can do that. So I know it's a tough challenge.
It is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, technology is really hard to fight, but I do think that educators, librarians, parents, everybody they're trying. And I see some really great ways to encourage kids to read, like doing things like first chapter Fridays at school. And I've met teachers who tell me that the kids beg them to keep going sometimes. They don't want to stop after one chapter, but reading with a child, even an older child. I know I made that mistake with my own children where I stopped reading to them once they were interested in chapter books. Like I would read picture books to them, and then I was like, okay, now you can go read. But I realized that, continuing that practice of reading together can be really encouraging. Like Chris mentioned, obviously exploring a wide variety of books to try to find the one that is the good fit. Not every reader, even within a family, is going to have the same taste. So, maybe you don't just pass on books from older sibling to younger sibling, but let younger sibling explore their own preferences and see what they really love. And then, of course, modeling good behavior. Like, it's so hard. All of us are glued to our phones and our screens, but making sure we turn those off and have time. And in school, I really wish people would bring back just like silent, sustained reading. Like I know we joke about it now, but it was good, right?
It was good.
And for everyone to be able to choose what they want to read and just have that time together, just like being in the library and maybe have it be less instructional, but just reading for pleasure.
Wow, such great responses, such great encouragement. I believe you both have hit the nail on the head about technology being a great challenge for kids and reading, and then just the interest level, and of course the ability to be literate. And you both mentioned like taking breaks, taking that half hour to daydream, to be curious, to imagine. And I love that you mentioned silent reading. I was a silent reader. Bring that book, bring that back. A lot of libraries are doing silent book clubs, so having that time to let them read new things. That's always been my success as a library person, is letting them read that book over and over again. If they love Chris's book, let them read that book 1,000 times. If they love Hena's books, let them read those books 1,000 times, maybe 1,001. They'll get to that point where they're ready for a new book because they've memorized Amina's voice. They've memorized the Lemoncello series, whatever it may be, and going from there. So it's complicated, but I also think like looking at the joy of reading, which you're both discussing, of being literate. That's how we get there. And I'm also talking while I queue up the next question, which I also sort of asked you both earlier. We talked about these things for hours. I feel like is if you weren't a writer, I'd ask you like, oh, maybe you want to be an astronaut, firefighter, Incredible Hulk. If you weren't a writer, what would you want your job to be? So one of our friends asks.
Well, I first started out, I came to New York City from Tennessee to be either a comedian or a writer. And so to be a comedian, you have to go to a lot of auditions and lots of auditions. And I decided I'd become a writer. I got a job in advertising. They said, why did you want to become a writer of advertising? I said, for stability. They said, only somebody who was an actor would think this job has any stability. But now, if I could go back in time, I think I would like to be a teacher, but I would have to have a cot in my classroom so I could take a nap on a regular basis, because I do like 1 or 2 in-person school visits a week, and I come home exhausted. Teachers, I don't know how you do it.
I know. Yeah, I think now when I visit schools too, I'm always in awe of the teachers and the librarians, and I feel like librarians kind of get to do the fun teaching and get kids excited about reading and research and cool stuff like that, and maybe less of the grading and that kind of thing. So I would be tempted to be a librarian if I wasn't doing this, but I know it's a lot of hard work. And I also really enjoy baking, which to me is another way of spreading joy apart from books and book love. Who doesn't love a really delicious cake or, or brownie? So I do love baking. My husband once, when I was thinking of working at a bakery, reminded me that requires very early morning hours. And he said, I just don't see you getting up at 4 a.m. to make the bread. And he was right, because I am a night owl. And I think that's why I'm probably better suited to stay up late and write versus waking up early to bake. But it is a dream to have like a bakery cafe / bookstore one day, if anyone out there wants to fund me.
Like Baker and Taylor.
There you go. Let's make it happen.
I make cookies. Yeah.
It happened. There it is. It had to be said
Baker,
at some point.
Taylor, and Hena, right?
Tailored. They
It's
bake the
right there.
cookies, and then they can let out your pants when you need to explain the recipe.
The baking show is coming soon. We know it. You're manifesting it. I love that teachers, educators, bakers. Someone talked about the burnout of teachers and kind of what Hannah was talking about. I love both of those. Both of those jobs are so necessary. So I love that both of you want those jobs while also craving baked goods, bread, cakes,
And
desserts.
naps.
I'm a pie person, so I am totally in line with this plan. And we have a couple of questions for both of you specifically. I'll ask Hannah's question first, which someone says, excuse me, I love the emotional depth to your books. The characters are so deep and real. Do you have trouble letting a character go? And how do you know a character's story is all told and it's time to say goodbye?
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that question. I do have a really hard time just saying goodbye to my characters, which is why I do like writing series and sequels, because I feel like they do become part of me and I want them to keep living on in new stories. I think someone told me once, and I thought it was good advice, that, don't just write a sequel or a series for the sake of continuing it. And I'm sure you can weigh in on this, Chris, but when you feel like the story, when you can't bring something new, like a new challenge or a new adventure or a new reason for the story to exist and to be complete and meaningful, then it's time to let it go. And so even with Amina's voice, I have, the original and then Amina's song, the sequel. And I'd always thought of it as a potential duology, but I didn't really think beyond that. And now people ask me, like, are you gonna continue? Will you write more? And unless I can think of a compelling reason why there needs to be another, I don't have the plans yet. But I do really love the idea of, or the way it works when we create characters we love and get to flesh out their lives, and especially the supporting cast, and then play with them in new books. So it is a balancing act, to know when to say goodbye, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's so very special. I think your answer was so thoughtful and precise. I love the backstory about what goes into your plan. And I also appreciate you telling me how to correctly pronounce Amina's voice, which shows you that I have not listened to the audiobook. So I appreciate that. I feel like there's so much power in people's names. And because my name is Michael, but it's spelled a little bit different. So I love like those stories, like those ways to find out about the beloved characters and stories that we all love.
Oh, you. People say it, Amina, most of the time, because that is the most common way of saying the name, and I pronounce it with the Pakistani pronunciation. So everyone's like, "Oh no, I've been saying it wrong," but you wouldn't know unless you heard it. So
No, it's something to learn. We should all be learning something new each day, and I get to learn how to pronounce it the way that you intended. So very, very special. Thank you. And then let's see, yeah. So we do have another question too for you, Chris, which is, when did you start adding puzzles to the mix? And do you have favorite puzzle games, either computer based or analog? And also, there's a lot of there's a lot of games and puzzles and things at your local library that you can go be a part of your community and build puzzles. So, Chris, maybe you want to do a
Yeah, I
library
think I
library
started.
tour of playing puzzles.
I started putting the puzzles into Mr. Lemoncello, and we're working on a new puzzle pack series that'll start next year. And I do it again because I'm going back to me being a reluctant reader. And I always liked when there was like an oasis or an island in the middle of all this text. I'm reading, I'm doing, working hard. Oh, there's a picture. I can stop and look at the picture for a while and sort of get my energy back. Now I'll go back into the words. And I find that the puzzles get the reluctant readers really involved in it's like they take a break, and classrooms and library groups I've talked to, they all get together and they work on the puzzles together. And it's like you get to play along. It's almost like a choose your own adventure because you get to be involved in the story. And I think that helps overcome again another obstacle to reluctant reading. It's like, well, I can play a game for a couple minutes here, and then all right, I got that done. I'm going to move on. And what's been really neat. Oh, and as far as online games, I have become addicted to Connections and one of the New York Times puzzles, as well as their new one, Strands and Spelling Bee. for some reason, I can see the pangram. I could just see it. In fact, my wife gave me a plaque saying pangram man. So my job every morning is to find the pangram. And I'm always like, if I can find it in just one word, oh, it's great. And then my wife, JJ, takes over and she takes us to amazing. That's her job. Get us to amazing. We don't need the queen bee and all that stuff. And Strands has been fun. So yeah, I like to play those games a lot. And I grew up in a house. I have 4 brothers, and my mom and dad had 5 boys in 7 years. We think they were trying to have a girl. And in the summer, we played a lot of board games, me and my brothers, especially if it was raining. So we played a lot of Monopoly. And as we got a little older, we played a game called Risk, and we played Scrabble. So a lot of board game activity going on in my house. So there's always been this love of games. And that's where the whole Lemoncello series got started.
I love that. Yeah, you just took those games all straight from your family and incorporated it just for, like you said, for those reluctant readers, just to bring everybody together. That's so
Yeah.
cool. And are you a puzzle builder, a game player?
I do enjoy them. Actually, a keyword is my favorite from the Washington Post. So I do play that daily and try to do it in the least amount of guesses. And some of the board games you mentioned, definitely a big part of my life. And I love the idea of building that in. Some of the first books that I worked on were part of a series of spy books, and we love putting in like decoding games and other things. I think it's a great way of getting kids excited about the books, and like you said, another path into the story. And that's what I love about the choose your own adventure format too, is it is sort of gamified, and a way to just engage with the text in a different way. So yeah, whatever we can do to get those readers reading and excited about it.
And in the first
Exactly.
Lemoncello book, we put a hidden puzzle. And I put a really kind of a cryptic note saying there's one more puzzle. It's in the book, but not the story, but a clue about how to find it is in the story. And what's been delightful is that is really create a community among readers. I get so many emails where the whole classroom worked together to crack the hidden puzzle. And it was so popular, we've had to put a hidden puzzle in every single one of the Lemoncello books, including, and this was extremely hard to do, in the graphic novel. We were able to put a hidden puzzle in the graphic novel. And yes, the grand finale will have a hidden puzzle too. Because if I didn't do it, I
Nice.
think people would get really upset.
You have to. I love that. Like you said, whatever it takes to hook readers, get them into it. Those games. I mean, incentives. Summer reading challenge is you get a you get a free book either when you sign up, when you complete the reading challenge. I was that kid who loved reading, getting a free personal pizza for reading books. I was
Yeah.
going to read more and more books. I was like, okay, I complete the challenge again. Can I get my next pizza? Like, no, Michael, just once. So I was that kid, and I really appreciate all the games you guys are mentioning. I've been jotting them all down. I'm a person who I grew up playing Monopoly in life, but now I really just play Pokemon Go each day. Whenever I travel somewhere new, I'm like, oh, gotta get the Pokestop, gotta find the Poke Gym, and I make a lot of connections with library kids that way who play Pokemon Go and they want to know what my favorite Pokemon is. So I'm not playing. I'm like, so soon I'll get on your level. I need to reread Lemoncello and complete all these puzzles.
There's some hidden puzzles waiting for you.
Now I know. Now I know the secret. And then we do have another question, which says, the world of children's literature is full of wonderful characters. Can you please tell us about a character you created that holds a special place in your heart and why? And if there's also time, which I think there is, can you please tell us about a character like this that was not created by you?
Hmm. Well, I'm gonna go. I don't remember the kid's name in the Watsons Go to Birmingham. So the main character in the Watsons Go to Birmingham, because what I love about fiction is you get to become somebody that you're obviously not for 300 pages. And that kid was so funny and endearing that I always tell kids that that book, more than any other one, kind of drives home why we need fiction, because fiction teaches us empathy, where you get to be somebody else. And that's a historical event, a terrible historical event. And you could read all the historical accounts of it and go, oh, that was terrible. But when you read this book, you actually feel it. And that's what fiction can do. And of all my characters, I've created quite a few of them. Let's see here. I guess I'd have to put Luigi Lemoncello at the top, because he's kind of me, but he's like this wacky adult. And it was really based on the fact when I did improvisational comedy, I had a chance to work sometimes with Robin Williams. And in my early writing in New York City, I got to write with Jim Henson and the Muppets. So I kind of put those two characters together because Jim Henson, when I knew him, was the most creative person. He also had all the money in the world. Anything he dreamt up, he could do. You'd go to his office. It was over on Park Avenue, but it was a brownstone. And whenever the front door opened, Gonzo the puppet would raise a camera and a flash would explode no matter who opened that front door. And all the furniture we say have legs. All the legs of his furniture were sculpted to look like creatures from his creature shop. So I said, if I put him together with the zaniness of Robin Williams and put a little bit of me in there, then I created Mr. Lemoncello. So yeah, he's probably been my favorite of all the ones I've created.
Oh, I love that. How amazing. What fun experiences.
Yes, it's been an interesting life thus far.
Two legends. Um, wow. Well, so for me, I think Ramona Quimby was my favorite character as a kid. I just loved the fact that she was so incredibly relatable. And, she embraced her emotions and lived, like you were talking earlier about mental health. I felt like it was such a healthy read because it was okay to be grumpy and dissatisfied or irritated with your teacher or your parent, or to just want things your way, and yet she just seemed to have so much fun, and I just wanted to be one of her friends, whether it was Henry Huggins or someone else on her street, and just do the things she did, take a bite out of every apple in a bag or make coffee can stilts and clomp around the neighborhood. So I think she played a big part in my creating the Zara's Rules series, which is actually linked to my Zaid Salim series. Zara is Zaid's sister, and I had created her when I wrote the Zaid series, but I just loved her as a character, and I didn't think she had enough of a role. So I decided to make a series based on her, and a lot of it is actually a lot of the specific events in the series is based on my childhood and my street and my neighborhood and my actual neighborhood friends. So it was fun to sort of go back and mine those memories and relive that, but also have it be my nod to Ramona and that feeling of wanting to be part of the fun. And I hope when kids read those series, they'll wish they were there too, and want to like live in the pages of the book.
Ah, that's so great. I hope that that actually answered the person's question. I love that Hannah, that you based it on your childhood for some of your books with the love of Ramona's. I've always loved Ramona's, like one of the most like the MySpace top 8 of iconic characters for me. I also loved Beezus, Ramona's older sister. And I love that Beverly clearly wrote those books, Henry Huggins, Beezus, and Ramona, Ralphus Mouse, because she felt that there weren't enough stories about kids just being kids, just being in their neighborhood. And I think that the reason she wrote it kind of is what rang true for you, which is so special, and especially that mental health factor of Ramona just going through her emotions as a child, as a person who Beezus is like, Ramona, please just stay home. I want to hang out with my friends. All those kind of things. I love, and thank you, Chris, for your answer too. One of our friends discovered that I think the main character name is Kenny Watson.
That's right.
And before I ask the next question that someone came up with, Chris, for you, since you mentioned the legendary Robin Williams, a lot of people don't know that there's movies at the library. Like sometimes that's a good way to get collection readers getting books, coming to the library, knowing that there's more than just books. That way they can
Never
fall in
judge
love.
a book by its movie.
No, exactly. Yeah. But I was just curious if you have a favorite character who Robin Williams played.
Wow. I love the movie Good Morning Vietnam because that was kind of based on a historical character who was a disc jockey during the Vietnam War and brought sort of joy in a totally miserable situation. So that would probably be one of my favorites.
Nice. I love that. I asked that because my dad, I'm a librarian. My dad for the longest time, I always joke he thought that Remember the Titans was one of the newest movies that libraries had. And we're like, no, we have all the movies. And someone asked, or one of our friends asked, what is your writing space like? Do you listen to music when you write? And if you do, what kind of music do you listen to?
I do. This is my writing space. You're in it right now. This is the wall that the kids see when I'm Zooming or Skyping with them. And that wall that you can't see is covered with metal and magnets because I always like to collect pictures of faces and places that might help inspire my writing. And also note cards and outlines go up there. So that wall's a mess. The kids never get to see that one except when I show it to them. And I do listen to music. My first books were adult murder mysteries that took place down the Jersey Shore. And I would listen to Bruce Springsteen. I have like 5,000 Bruce Springsteen songs. And I know him so well that it becomes like white noise. So when I'm writing Lemoncello books or other books, one of the first things I do is I create a playlist. And for instance, when I was working on Treasure Hunters with James Patterson, I got all the soundtracks to Pirates of the Caribbean. So I listen to that. And if I'm working on Mr. Lemoncello, it might be more sort of whimsical movie tracks. So I listen to a lot of movie tracks when I'm writing. And sometimes I'll find if I'm getting late in the day, like the movie track will pick up the pace, young man. And so the movie tracks really help me out.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
also a great way when I'm writing on the road, in a coffee shop, on an airplane, on a train, sitting in a bus terminal. I can put my headphones on and completely block out wherever I am.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. Well, this is my writing space sometimes. This is my little home office. But if I'm not here, I'm usually sitting at my kitchen table. And I often would write there when my kids are done with grade school now, but when they used to be in grade school and they'd come home, I'd often be already sitting at the table and they'd be having a snack or maybe watching some TV and then I would have to move and come back here because for me, music and other like I was always amazed by people who could read a book with the TV on because I need to sort of hear the book while I'm reading it in my head. And it's the same when I'm writing. I think I need to hear myself and the words and the voice of the characters. So the music for me, especially music with lyrics, I could probably listen to, wordless music or lyricless music. I guess instrumental would be the word. But if there's I start focusing too much on the music and not enough on the writing, but it is good sometimes for in an emergency on a plane to block out the other sounds.
I love that we got both sides of both of you. I love both of your settings. I love that you're both books and mine is just this. I'm very surprised that both of my cats have not shown up. They usually show up during these Machine Gun Kitty and Kissing Count Barlow. So they must be resting over here in the California heat. And I think we've got time for maybe one or two more questions. We'll ask the one question just in case we run out of time because this has been such a fun important discussion. Is with this being the summer reading kickoff for Baker and Taylor, what does summer reading mean to both of you? Like how much have you always read during the summer, even if you weren't a library kid? Like what does summer reading challenge and it being involved with libraries and educators, what does it mean to you and your reading souls?
Yeah, I think summer is always meant reading what you want to read. And I never went to one of the schools with a summer reading list. I see a lot of those. I see Lemoncello appears on those. I hope you like it, kids. It's on a list. But the schools in Tennessee, we did not have summer reading lists. So it's always, woohoo, free time. So I think of summer reading as getting to read whatever I want. I think it's in the summers where I first read my first Agatha Christie's and my first Stephen King thrillers and all those comic books and those mad books. And it was just like reading for fun. School's out. We get to read what we want to read now. And if there's any way to encourage that, I think that's a great thing because it's like, oh, wow, I get to read what I want now because this is my time.
Yeah, absolutely. Summers are for reading. And, for me, it was the hot, humid, sticky summer. So it was play outside until you couldn't stand it and then come inside and cool off with a book. And disappear into a story for a little bit. And the library was like I mentioned earlier, just a home away from home for me, a place where I just felt so free to explore and try new things, try different types of books, and go on different reading adventures. So for me now as an adult, I I always hear about summer reading and even adult summer reads that are, beach reads or, poolside reads. And I'm so protective of books that like, no, they'll get wet or they'll get sand in them, But now I'm trying to, take a book to the beach because I love the pictures that people post of that. And I do think reading should be with, wherever you go. That's the beauty of books, is that you can have them on a car ride, you can have them on a plane, at camp, whatever it is, and it's yours and it's your escape from everything around you. So hopefully lots of fun reads and great programs that I think are so innovative and so needed, and hopefully will encourage a lot of kids.
Man, you're both so amazing. I'm so happy to have this conversation with you. I love what you both just said about summer reading, the summer reading challenge. To me, that's what it's always meant as well. It's time to take a break. Educators, librarians, even library kids who may be watching this, or just the world is struggling. There's some people who are having great mental health days, some people who are in the trenches of mental health, and it's just a time to just read what you love. Go to the library to be who you are. You don't have to leave your anxiety. You don't have to leave your bad days outside the library. You could just come in and you can just be, you can read Hena Khan books, you can read Curse's books, you can just be who you are. And I love that. I love that's what the summer reading challenge represents. And I would just love to leave both of you with the final word before I say thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. It's been such an honor, and I would just take whatever Hena, whatever Chris you would like to say to our wonderful viewers. I will leave the final word to both of you, and then we'll hear from our Baker and Taylor friends.
Well, I would like to say thank you to all the librarians who have put so many of my books on their shelves and have made reading and learning fun. I'm a big believer in what Mary Poppins says, that in every job to be done, there is an element of fun. And if we can make reading fun, which is what you guys do on a daily basis, then that is terrific. It'll get a new generation of readers, and you really can't do anything if you don't read. I think in one of the books I wrote about someone who says, I don't like to read. What do I need to read? It's like, well, if you didn't know how to read, how would you know what you were putting on your hair was shampoo and not drain cleaner? That reading is such a powerful thing that we can't do anything in this world without it. So thank you for making it fun, especially for making it fun in summertime.
Absolutely. Huge thank you to all of you. Thanks to all the readers out there. Thanks to everyone who sends notes to us. We haven't mentioned that, but that is like such a gift to hear from readers and to know what our books mean to you, to know what you would love to see more of. I know for me, it has made a difference in what I write and how I write. So thank you to everyone who gives me feedback and leaves reviews, and to everyone who, yes, is supporting kids and encouraging them to read and getting our books into their hands. Like, we are eternally grateful, and hope you have an amazing summer filled with great books.
Thank you. Oh, there she is.
She's in a library filled with cats.
I'm back. Thank you so much, all of you. I just appreciate your time today and talking about so many different things to our librarians and those librarians communities. Thank you, Hena. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much, Mychal, for moderating. That was such a fun Q&A, and I feel like you really covered so many interesting things that I was just so delighted to hear. And I'm sure everybody out there was so glad you could answer their questions. So thank you so much. I do want to say another thank you to our Penguin Random House folks, to our authors, to Mychal. Happy reading this summer. If you are interested in some more summer reading events like today, we have more, and I will put that link in the chat. They're free. Your librarians can watch, your community can watch. And we hope you join us. Happy reading and happy summer from all of us here at the Children's Department at Baker and Taylor. Have a wonderful rest of your summer.